Hello and welcome to a cornucopia of tales and tellers. I'm Simona, and here with me is Alan. Hello, Alan.
Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello.
And this week we're celebrating both World Storytelling Day and World Poetry Day. So, Alan, I think you've got a poem for us, don't you?
I have a couple of poems for us, a couple of little nice ones from the Emerald Isle and nearby, for all of us to enjoy.
Wonderful. And also, we've got some poetry from Poland as Ewa is joining us once again. And we thank her very much for wanting to contribute to the podcast. Thank you, Ewa.
So, as World Storytelling Day is on the Monday and World Poetry Day is on the Tuesday, Simona, what do you have for us?
I've got a story that I created, putting together three well-known stories, and it's about the theme of Together We Can to celebrate World Storytelling Day this year. So without further ado, enjoy. There were once three sisters who were kind, wise, and loved each other very much. They lived happily in a house with their father. But one day, their father told them, "I'm very sick, and soon I will die. But I want to leave the house to one of you, and I will leave this house to the one of you who will be able to fill the house with something." And the first sister said, "Well, Father, I've got an idea. Give me 1 day and I'll be back." And she went out. The second sister said, "Oh, Father, I've got an idea. Give me 2 days and I'll be back." And she went out of the house. And the third sister too, she said, "Well, Father, I've got an idea too. Give me 3 days and I'll be back." And she went out of the house. The following day, the first sister came back to the house. She had a bag with her, and when she entered the house, she opened the bag and she pulled out a candle. "Look, Father." And saying that, she lit the candle, and the light of the candle was so strong that all the house was full with light. "Look, Father, look! I fill the house with light. The house is full." And her father looked around and he said, "Well, you're right. You fill the house with light. The house is full. Oh, daughter, the house is yours." And the first daughter smiled and she said, "Well, Father, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. I'm sure my two sisters will think of something else." The following day, the second sister came back to the house. She was carrying something behind her back when she entered the house, and happily she said, "Father, I went to the house where we used to live before moving here. And do you remember the fiddle I used to play when we lived there? Well, guess what? I found it. I found it again. And now listen, please." And she took the fiddle from behind her back and she started playing such cheerful music that it made you want to dance. And after playing for a while, the second sister said, "Look, Father, I filled the house with music. The house is full." And her father, clapping his hands, looked around and said, "You're right. You fill the house with music. The house is full of music. The house is yours. And the second sister kept playing her fiddle. And she said, well, father, I'm sure my other sister will think of something else. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. And the following day, the third sister came back to the house. But when she entered the house, you could hear voices coming from outside. She was not alone, and soon people came into the room. Old family friends, who their father was very happy to see again. And soon the house was full of laughter and voices, and the third sister said, Father, look, I filled the house with laughter and joy. The house is full. And her father looked around and he said, well, daughter, you're right. You fill the house with joy and laughter. The house is full. The house is yours. But my first daughter filled the house with light. My second daughter filled the house with music. And you, my third daughter, you filled the house with joy and laughter. But who am I going to leave the house to? And the three sisters, the kind and wise three sisters, they looked at each other and they said to us, leave the house to the three of us together. We want to live in this house together because the house is better with light, music, and laughter. It's better because together we can.
So throughout the podcast today, I'm going to do a total of 4 poems. 2 classical and 2 contemporary. Hope you enjoy. You probably know at least one of the classicals. So first, we're going up to County Donegal on the northwest of Ireland. And we're going back to the 19th century. This is William Allingham's, well, probably his most famous poem, The Fairies. He goes on about the supernatural world of the fairies. And this was back when there was a Celtic revival of sorts. There was a revival of our culture, our history, folklore, and the other people. The fairies. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, tripping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. Down along the rocky shore, some make their home. They live on crispy pancakes of yellow tide foam. Some in the reeds of the black mountain lake, with frogs for their watchdogs, all night awake. High on the hilltop, the old king sits. He's now so old and grey, he's nigh lost his wits. With a bridge of white mist, Columkilly crosses on the stately journeys from Slieve League to Ross's, or going up with the music on cold starry nights to sup with the queen of the gay northern lights. They stole little Bridget for 7 years long. When she came down again, her friends were all gone. They took her lightly back between the night and morrow. They thought that she was fast asleep, but she was dead with sorrow. They have kept her ever since, deep within the lake, on a bed of fig leaves, watching till she wake. By the craggy hillside, through the mosses bare, they have planted thorn trees for my pleasure here and there. Is any man so daring as dig them up in spite? He shall find the sharpest thorns in his bed at night. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, tripping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. So the next one I'm going to do is a contemporary one that I read out at the Christmas Eve World Storytelling Cafe Telling for Peace event. It's quite a powerful poem written by Imelda May and quite recent. Now, obviously, we can read the news worldwide, but just to set the context, there's a phrase in this that actually refers back to a very famous phrase, unfortunately, in Irish history from, well, basically, it was known to exist in the 1980s, but goes much further back than that. There was a phrase used across the UK and across America when the Irish diaspora were, leaving Ireland and looking for jobs, which is all we've ever done in our history. We have emigrated, simple as that. But there was signages and signposts for renting houses or for jobs that used the phrase "no blacks, no dogs, no Irish." Now, the Irish diaspora is 70 million people around the world. Our culture has invaded every country. We haven't, but our culture certainly has. But these were quite common signposts you would see in generally poorer areas where the Irish immigrated, couldn't get jobs, couldn't get housing. So this sort of harks back to that. I think it's an especially poignant poem, especially in the current times where even during a housing crisis, we've taken on, must be about 80,000 people from, certain other events happening around the world. So we need to remember, the human race, we're all from the one place, no matter how far you look back. All we want is a bit of happiness, safety, comfort, a roof over our head, something in our bellies. Maybe that's a nice Irish stew. And a cup of tea. Why not? So this is Imelda May's "You Don't Get to Be Racist and Irish." You don't get to be racist and Irish. You don't get to be proud of your heritage, plights and fights for freedom while kneeling on the neck of another. You're not entitled to sing songs of heroes and martyrs, mothers and fathers who cried as they starved in the famine, or the brave-hearted, soft-spoken poets and artists lined up in the yard, blindfolded and bound, waiting for Godot, and point blank to sound. We emigrated, we took refuge, so cannot refuse, when it's our time, to return the favour, land stolen, spirits broken, bodies crushed and swollen, unholy tokens of Christ, nailed to a tree that you hang around your neck like a noose of the free, our colour pasty, our accents thick, hands like shovels from mortar and bricklaying, foundations of cities, now you stand upon, our suffering seeps from every stone, your opportunities arise from outstanding on the shoulders of our forefathers and foremothers, who bore your mother's mother. Our music is for the righteous, our joys have been earned. Well deserved and served to remind us to remember more blacks, more dogs, more Irish. Still labelled leprechauns, mixed paddies, louts, we're shouting to tell you our land, our law, are progressively out there. We're in a chrysalis, a state of emerging into a new and more beautiful era. 40 shades better, unanimous in our rainbow vote. We've found our stereotypical pot of gold, and my God, it's good. So join us, cause you don't get to be racist and Irish.
The poem I'd like to share with you was written by Halina Poświatowska, a renowned and greatly popular figure in female lyrical poetry in Polish post-war literature. She is primarily a poet of love. In her poetry there are references to philosophy, but it's not philosophical poetry at all. It's intellectual, using the language of discourse or argumentative. 1956 marked a significant political as well as cultural transition, and after a period of social realism, Polish poetry spoke with a full voice and showed incredible richness. What began to matter was imagination, the courage to express oneself, irony, distance, and personality. The debut of Halina Poświatowska's idol worship in 1958 was one indicator of this transition. Her choice of the free verse, addressing directly the subject of love, and the existential reflection placed her within the mainstream of Polish poetry. Despite the passing of time, Poświatowska is not forgotten by the readers. Perhaps she enchants, with her feminine charm, but at the same time she impresses with her existential courage. Here's one of her poems translated by Maya Peretz. She bears the name of a tall sunflower, who, very much in love, follows her with the enraptured gaze of 1,000 gold-hued eyes into the hearts of broadleaves as a bee swarm. The sun drones, so the sunflower chimes into the bluely thrown gold, while Van Gogh, who lived mostly in the minds of angels, has planted him on canvas and ordered to shine.
So from the same book of the last poem, I have an anthology. It's a compilation of poems. It's called One for Everyone, More Poems I Love, compiled by Kathleen Watkins. It's a really, really nice book. Picked it up in Cork. The next poem, it's just a nice little poem. It's you know those poems you read and it says, oh, that last word's nice. You know, that last line, yeah, that's nice. So I thought I'd do this one as well. This is Everything is Going to Be All Right by Derek Mahan. How should I not be glad to contemplate the clouds clearing beyond a dormer window and a high tide reflecting on the ceiling? There will be dying, but there is no need to go into that. The lines flow from the hand unbidden, and the hidden source is the watchful heart. The sun rises in spite of everything, and the far cities are beautiful and bright. I lie here in a riot of sunlight, watching the day break and the clouds flying. Everything is going to be all right. I'm going to finish on a classic by W.B. Yeats. We're going to go up to Sligo, and on Loch Gill there is the Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the veils of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on the roadway or on pavements grey, I hear it in the deep heart's core. Gurab Mila Mahagat.